Hello, I'm Dave, and today I'm going to talk about an engineer's perspective on the existence of God. When I was growing up, there was a fear of higher education in the sciences because people who got deep into the sciences often became atheists or agnostics. I always found this to be strange. There seems to be a philosophy that if you understand how things work in the world around you, that everything has some kind of a physical explanation, and therefore you no longer need to believe that there is a God. I'm an engineer. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Michigan. I've worked as an engineer for 41 years. One of the things I've always loved about being an engineer is understanding how things work. I understand how an engine works, why the combustion process happens, the chemical reactions, what affects the fuel economy and emissions. I understand why bridges hold together and why things break. I understand why there is fog. I love understanding thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, statics and dynamics, mechanics of materials, some physics, some chemistry, and how math pulls so many of these things together. The more I learn about how things work, the more I am impressed with what an awesome creator there must be to have designed all of this and put it into place. I'm not alone in this. I've gotten to know a lot of engineers throughout my career. While they are not all Christians, almost all of them believe that there is a God. It's simply the logical conclusion, when we see the incredibly complex creation, that there must be a creator. I spent my career in the auto industry. Cars are incredibly complex. I've personally designed car parts. I've done lots of analysis to predict the performance of car parts and what they will do in the car. I know that designing a car requires hundreds or more like thousands of engineers working together for years to complete the design of the car. I can't imagine someone coming along, figuring out how the engine parts go together, and then concluding that since a human can understand how the parts go together, that therefore the car just happened by itself and there are no engineers. Looking at the world around us, learning about how things work, and therefore concluding that there is no creator makes about as much sense as learning about how a car works and then concluding that there are no engineers. The Bible talks about this in Romans 1 verse 20, where it says, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood by what has been made, so that people are without excuse." I look at this and say, yes, obviously. One of my favorite examples of the creation pointing to the creator is in the field of thermodynamics. In thermodynamics, there is something called entropy. Entropy is defined as randomness. The second law of thermodynamics states that entropy always increases unless work is done on the system. In other words, everything becomes more and more chaotic and disorganized unless work is done on it. For an easy illustration, look at your house. As you live in your house, it becomes dirty and cluttered. When you anticipate company coming over, you do work on it and make it clean and orderly. Then after your company leaves, it becomes increasingly dirty and cluttered again until you do the work of cleaning and organizing it again. When I was a student at the University of Michigan, I and my fellow engineering students loved it when we got to the end of Chapter 8 about entropy in Sonntag and Van Wylen's book called Fundamentals of Classical Thermodynamics, version 2E. At the end of Chapter 8, it says, "The final point to be made is that the second law of thermodynamics and the principle of the increase in entropy have philosophical implications. Does the second law of thermodynamics apply to the universe as a whole? Are there processes unknown to us that occur somewhere in the universe, such as continual creation, that have a decrease in entropy that is associated with the natural processes that are known to us? If the second law is valid for the universe, we of course do not know if the universe can be considered as an isolated system, how did it get into the state of low entropy? On the other end of the scale, if all processes known to us have an increase in entropy associated with them, what is the future of the natural world as we know it?" Quite obviously, it is impossible to give conclusive answers to these questions on the basis of the second law of thermodynamics alone. However, the authors see the second law of thermodynamics as man's description of the prior and continuing work of a creator who also holds the answer to the future destiny of man and the universe. Okay, if that's not conclusive enough, let's take a look at mathematics, specifically probability and statistics. If we roll a single die, there's a 1 in 6 chance of rolling a 6. If we roll a pair of dice, there's a 1 in 36 chance of rolling a 12. If we roll 3 dice, there's a 1 in 216 chance of rolling 18. Think about the complex world around us. People will claim that it is reasonable to believe that over billions of years it happened by chance. That's like believing that if you roll 100 million dice enough times, all 100 million will come up 6. The chances of that happening, even over billions of years, is a statistical impossibility. If you take out the politics and the religion and, frankly, the human arrogance, if you look at it strictly from a scientific and mathematical perspective, the only logical conclusion, as far as I'm concerned, as an engineer, is that there is a God. That's today's video. Please check back for more videos about how we can know more about the Creator, whose existence we have learned about through the creation.